Hello, I'm George Anderson, and I want to talk to you about your running technique for the next few minutes. Now, this isn't a video about how to run faster or how to run further. This is a video about how to run better. I'm not saying that my technique is the only way that counts. I'm just saying that if you're looking for a system of making some improvements to the way you run, then this one's going to be as good as any. So I'm going to show you over the next few minutes how to work your posture, how to work your lean so gravity actually helps you run. I'm going to talk to you about your arm drive, your breathing, how to relax your body more to get better results and minimize the chances of injury. I'm going to even talk to you about how to concentrate and not concentrate, it's just as important, on how your feet land on the ground as you run. Running a technique is really important as a runner, and unless you pay attention to the way that you run, then you're always going to have a limit, an upper limit, to the results that you get from the training that you do. So first up, we're going to talk about your posture as you run. One of the classic running poses is the runner's slump. As you get tired towards the end of a run, you end up running like this, pounding into the ground. And you can imagine that's probably not going to be doing you any favors and certainly not going to be helping you grow as a faster, more efficient runner. So what we want to try and do instead is to lengthen the spine. Now, I could go on all day about tucking the tailbone under, drawing in the core muscles, pulling the shoulder blades back, but really you only have to think of one thing, and that's to imagine you have a piece of string tied to the top of your head that is lifting you up as you run. In fact, do it right now. Stand up, stand with whatever posture you would naturally stand with, and then tie that imaginary piece of string to the top of your head and pull yourself up and just feel what happens. Everything lengthens, your spine gets longer, your tummy muscles will naturally draw in. Magical, instant slimness. And as you run like this with this posture, then you become more efficient. This is the way the spine is designed to stack up and work in its most biomechanically efficient state. So if you just think about the piece of string, it's a little trick that works like gangbusters for many, many runners that I've worked with. Think about the piece of string trick as you run, especially as you start getting tired, and that will really help with your posture. The second thing I want you to think about then, once you've got that posture nailed, is your body angle, your lean. Because as you run, there's three ways you can do this. You can either be completely upright or leaning back. Either way, your foot is going to land in front of your center of mass. Alternatively, you can lean forward slightly as you run. What happens when you lean forward slightly is your foot is forced to come out in front of you and stop you from falling over flat in your face and breaking your nose. You have this inbuilt sense of safety in your head that says, I don't want to break my nose, so let's put a foot out and stop that from happening. And it looks a little bit like this. Standing up nice and tall with that piece of string, leaning forwards, and the foot naturally comes out in front of my body to stop me from falling over. Brilliant. That's a really easy one to do, because you have to think about it. You have to be conscious of what's happening. Lifting tall and then leaning and falling forwards, you should feel as though that foot is naturally coming out front. And what will happen at that point is you don't even have to worry about pushing off with the legs. We'll talk about being relaxed in just a moment, but you don't want to push with the legs. You just want to work on the lean and driving with the arms, which I'm going to be coming on to right away in the next little piece. So the first two things are to lengthen the spine and to lean forward slightly, and you can practice both of those things on your next technique run. Okay, let's talk about arm drive next, because I've already mentioned it is important. Many of us, when we run, we don't really know what to do with these things. They tend to just go out all over the place, and we don't really give too much thought about it. The classic is for big arm drives to come across the body through here, or to get big rotations through the shoulders here. Neither of which are particularly effective when it comes to powering you forwards. Remember, we want to be going that way. We want to be going forwards. What happens to the sides is really not going to help us at all. And rotationally, again, that's not going to be of great use either, because the big rotations through the spine, that's going to carry on down through the chain. It's going to end up in the hips and pelvis, and that can cause all sorts of other problems further down the chain, in the legs, the knees, the ankles, the feet, and so on. So what do we want to do with the arms? Well, I want you to, once you've got this lengthening and this leaning, I want you to relax your shoulders and imagine you've got your hands gripped very loosely, and you're going to take your hand back to the side here. So your hand just about touches the hip. As you come forwards, the elbow comes forward, so it also touches the hip. So you're driving out behind and then in front. What you don't want is to be driving up to here so you can see your hand. If you're looking straight ahead, you should be able to just about see the hand coming into your lower peripheral vision. So you're running along and you can just about see the hand, but what's important is that it's driving out behind you. About 90-degree bend and not too tight and rigid either. You want to stay relaxed as much as you can when you run. So with the arm drive, again, it's something you have to think about, and you'll no doubt forget to do the arm drive, and then you'll remember and you'll go into it again. This is why these technique runs are so important and so useful. So let's talk about, one other thing on that. Thinking about your shoulders, if you imagine you've got a set of headlights on your shoulders facing straight ahead, then as you run, those headlights should stay facing forwards rather than twisting around to the side. It's where we see these lots of big arm drives going on here, but really all we're doing is we're creating that twist through the spine, and we're not really interested in that. We want to keep it balanced and we want to keep it aligned. So shoulders, headlights, facing forwards, drive the arms to the back of the body. Let's talk about keeping relaxed now, because I've mentioned that a couple of times already. When you run, you do want to be relaxed. And it sounds a bit of an oxymoron, really. How can you be relaxed and running? Well, what I mean is you want to allow gravity to do as much of the work as possible with the lean. You don't want to be tensing up muscles. It's very hard to injure a relaxed muscle. So when you run, try to keep everything as loose and relaxed as possible. As you lengthen through here, we're not trying to stand at attention like a soldier. All we're trying to do is to get some alignment through the spine and allow our body to relax so the energy can flow through our body as we run. So when you're running and you think about what your feet are doing, don't think about lifting the leg and putting the foot down and driving forwards and tensing up your calves, because all that's going to do is to cause extra tension, which can potentially, well, over time, if you imagine that you're doing that time and time and time again, over time, all that extra unnecessary tension, it's going to cause, well, potentially going to cause injury. Certainly going to be uncomfortable, and best case scenario, you're just going to be a more inefficient runner than you could potentially be otherwise. So what do? I want you to think about scanning your body as you run. We've already got the position, the posture, we've already got the lean, and we've got the arm drive. But now just take regular scans of your body, so you're going from head to toe, thinking about how relaxed your muscles are as you go. So if you feel any areas of tension, just focus in on those areas, the thighs, the butt, the hamstrings, the core, the shoulders, the back, the arms, the neck, anywhere you find those areas of tension, just bring your attention to those points, your focus to those points, and try to allow them to relax. Okay, next up, let's talk about your hip position, your hip alignment. Because when you run, we've already talked about the piece of string, and that will already bring in a bit of tension through the core. But what we really want to do with the pelvis is a little bit of a tuck under with the hips, and then push them back a touch as well. Now, if you do this from standing, it's a lot easier than trying to do it when you're on the run. But start off by standing tall, tuck the tailbone under, push the hips to the rear, and then get that lean. Because we don't want to be drawing the hips through or bending over backwards too here, and we don't want to be arching the back too much either with the bum sticking out. So as you run, think about getting your body into the right position, and that includes your hips. A little bit of a tension through the lower abdominals, so you bring in the front of the pelvis, just lift it up slightly, gives you a nice little bit of a round in the back, but not too much. And then that again is going to keep your pelvis in a much better position in order to run. Next one I want to talk about is how your feet land on the ground. And this is one that there's huge debate in the industry and with runners as to how this should happen. Whether we should land on the heels, whether we should land on the midfoot, whether we should land on the forefoot as we run. Well, my answer to that is don't worry about it. Because if you get the lengthening and you get the leaning and you're falling and you're relaxing, your feet will land in the position that they're designed or they're meant to land in for you. Now, it is important that you have the right trainers or runners, the right footwear on your feet. But as you run, if you've got loads of support on your heel and you're landing on the midfoot, then that support in the heel is going to do absolutely nothing for you. If you imagine your hands relax on the end of your wrists here, they're nice and loose. If you can pick your foot up and do the same thing with your foot on the end of your ankle, then what that's going to do is it's going to make sure that as you run, you're not pushing off with the ankle. You're not getting all that tension through the calf. And instead, your feet are just landing on the ground and they're reacting with the ground in the way that nature intended them to do so. Whatever you then have on your feet is going to help with that interaction between your foot and the ground. But by and large, the mechanics are happening naturally because you're not putting extra tension, extra forces through there. So first of all, don't worry about your feet. We want to concentrate on not concentrating on the feet by getting the body position, getting the lean, and then relaxing, and then that should allow your feet to land naturally on the ground. The last thing I want to talk to you about then today is your breathing. And I'm only going to cover this very briefly because I already have another video that goes into that in some detail on my YouTube channel. But with breathing, the way I breathe and the way I've always breathed when I run is to try and time it in time with my feet landing on the ground. So I'll breathe in, out, out, in, out, out, in, out, out. A couple of breaths in and a couple of breaths out. And when I get that rhythm, I know that I'm going to be getting enough air in. It's going to be in my lungs for long enough for the oxygen in the air in my lungs to get into the bloodstream and get to the working muscles, and for the carbon dioxide to get out of the bloodstream and into my lungs. I don't want to take short, sharp, choppy breaths. I know that if I'm breathing 2 in, 2 out, then that's an intensity for me that I can sustain for a long period of time. If I get to a point where I can't hold that intensity anymore, that breathing rate, then on most of my training runs, I know that I'm running a little bit too fast and I'll then slow down. But in, out, out, in, out, out. If you want more information on that technique, then go to the video that's linked up on the screen in front of you right now. But otherwise, just think about getting a technique where you are aware of your breathing. When it comes to your technique, if you just applied a couple of those points that I've just been through there, they will make an incredible difference to how well you run and what enjoyment you get out of it as well. I hope that video has been useful to you. There's plenty more to come. Bye for now.